Before we start, let me say something that might sting a little. You didn't miss the red flag. You actually negotiated with it. You saw it, you felt it, and then you explained it away. He's just busy. He had a hard past. I don't want to be too picky. Maybe I'm overreacting. No, that feeling in your stomach, that tightness in your chest, that overthinking spiral that you have at 10 o'clock at night, that's not you being dramatic. That's your intuition trying to get your attention. Hi, I'm Lynn Imhoff, relationship reinvention coach for women over 50. And if you're dating in your 50s and beyond, you can't afford to ignore your intuition. And I say that because I ignored mine for too many years. I dated off and on for 10 years before meeting my husband when I was 53. The first guy I met online, I was with for about 5 months. And we figured out after a few phone calls that our boys, who were about 9 or 10 at the time, went to the same summer camp and were really good friends at camp. Small world, considering we lived about a half hour apart from each other. One day, when both of our families were together, my oldest daughter, who was 20 at the time, was sitting on the couch. And this guy that I was dating actually walked over to her by the couch and purposefully farted in her face. I assure you that did not go over really well. He was definitely a dad of young boys. But I continued to date him for another month or so because our boys were friends. And I knew it was time to go, and I stayed anyway. Then I dated a guy off and on for about 2 years, even though he lied to me multiple times. Every time he lied, I told myself it would be different, even though there were other red flags in between the lies. The final straw, though, was when he drove my son to and from Soldier Field in Chicago, which was at least 2 hours round trip, although probably more with traffic. And I found out afterwards that he had stopped taking the seizure medicine that he was supposed to be taking. God only knows what would have happened if he had had an accident while he was driving. Rock bottom, though, was when I spent 3 years with somebody else who ghosted me when I questioned him about something. There were plenty of red flags during those 3 years, including that he wasn't a good communicator. He had a tendency to cut people off that disagreed with him, and he didn't have good relationships with quite a few people in his family. But the truth is that I didn't miss the red flags. I just chose to ignore them and I overrode my gut. At that time in my life, I was settling because he had some really good qualities and there were things about the relationship that were really good. But I learned that I wanted potential more than I wanted peace. When I was dating in my 40s and my early 50s, the problem wasn't seeing the red flags. The problem was trusting myself enough to act on them, which I eventually did and continued to do. You see, a red flag isn't about preferences like having different hobbies or different personalities. You know, he's loud and you're quiet, having different tastes in music or dressing differently than you would like him to. A red flag is about character. A red flag is about consistency. So let's talk about the four big ones women over 50 excuse all the time. Number one, like I just said, inconsistency. They're hot and cold, so you don't know if they're coming or going. They talk about the future, but their actions don't match what they say. Then there's intensity without stability, big feelings, big promises, great chemistry, and inconsistent behavior. Healthy relationships aren't intense one week and then distant the next. They're steady. Consistency builds safety, and inconsistency builds anxiety. And a relationship shouldn't be filled with anxiety. Number two, no accountability. When they say that every one of their exes was crazy, that every problem, getting fired from a job or whatever it was, every problem was somebody else's fault, and every misunderstanding somehow gets turned on you and it's your fault, that's a problem. Not taking responsibility and ownership is a huge red flag. So pay attention to how somebody tells you their story because it tells you a lot about who they are, whether they've done any inner work on themselves, and how they're going to handle things in the future. Number three, rushing intimacy, whether it's emotional or physical. If someone is trying to get close really fast before you've built trust with them, that isn't romance, it's pressure. Healthy love is supposed to unfold naturally. And here's the one we don't talk about enough. Number four, you don't feel peaceful. You're analyzing all his texts, you're replaying conversations in your head and trying to decode his tone of voice. Maybe you've even gotten input from your friends because you're not sure what's going on. That was me on occasion, but not always because I knew in my gut what they were going to tell me. So let me be really clear. If someone is right for you, you're not going to feel confused. Your body and your mind will feel grounded and at peace. I got remarried when I was 56, and I wasn't necessarily looking to get married again, but I knew early on that my husband was different than anybody else that I had ever dated, so I was open to it. And do you know what the difference was? The biggest difference between healthy love and all the other relationships that I struggled in? It was that I didn't have to convince myself of anything. There weren't any red flags I was trying to explain away or convince myself were okay. I didn't have to question anything because his actions told me everything I needed to know. Plus, they matched his words. It felt steady, it felt calm, it felt grounded, not perfect, perfect for me, and secure. And after 50, grounded is sexy. Hell, after 30, grounded is sexy. You aren't asking for too much. You're asking for alignment. So here's what I want you to remember. Red flags aren't challenges. They're information for you to pay attention to. You don't need more time to figure it out, like 2 or 3 years or even months, just like I did. You just need to have more trust in yourself. If it costs you peace, it's too expensive, especially at this stage of life. And you would tell the same thing to your children or your best friend, right? So tell me in the comments, what's one red flag you used to excuse, but you're not willing to do it anymore? I want to hear. And if this resonated with you, hit the button to subscribe. We're not chasing potential anymore. We're choosing peace because peace is the new chemistry. And that's relationship reinvention.